Chapter 31, Immortal Opportunity Stone. Xianxia's breakthrough was within his expectations, but it also gave Jiang Li a sense of urgency. Xianxia's spiritual root potential should be very close to a top-grade spiritual root, but he was not one after all. If even he had such a cultivation speed, what about Xianxia with the top-grade spiritual root? What about other geniuses with better talent and more resources than Xianxia? What level were they at now? Jiang Li could not guess, but he expected them to be very powerful. He had a golden finger cheat, so he could definitely become stronger and stronger in the future. However, he was still very weak right now. He was still at the early stages of the accumulation of foundation. At this time, he could not afford to relax or be careless. At this time, Yan Hong pretended to be careless and handed over a cloth bag. Jiang Li, according to what you said, I've brought my men to the Immortal Ascension Pavilion. The things you want are harder to find, but I've basically bought everything. The total cost is 143 spirit stones. I've put the remaining 7 spirit stones into your bag. Jiang Li received the bag and opened it to take a look. A trace of joy immediately flashed across his face. It's been hard on you. Just keep the extra spirit stones. Why are you returning them to me? He rummaged through the bag and found 7 spirit stones in the corner. There's no need to stand on ceremony with me. I've already deducted the travel fees and the spirit stones needed to purchase the mission items. Furthermore, I have wanted to go to the Immortal Ascension Pavilion for a long time. Their goods are much richer than those in the sect. I can earn quite a bit from this trip. However, Jiang Li, the alchemist who accepted the mission from the Immortal Ascension Pavilion, said that this is a useless formula. If we make the same request again, we will have to pay more. Yan Hong deliberately lowered his voice to prevent others from hearing the last sentence. HMPH, these alchemists are really used to taking advantage of others. They don't even care about the rules after suffering a little loss. Let's find another alchemist next time. In the cultivation world, alchemy and blacksmithing were both very popular. Other than regular pill refinement sales, they would occasionally take personal customized pill refinement orders. At this time, the price of substitute refinement would usually be negotiated by both sides. However, in the alchemy field, there was an unwritten rule or convention. That was, if the client provided the ingredients and pill formulas on his own, and the pill formulas were extremely rare, or if it was just a new pill formula, then the alchemist would not charge a fee or charge a very small amount to refine those pills for them. After refining it, he would naturally obtain the pill formula. That was already a huge reward. Although Jiang Li said that, the truth was that he had indeed tricked the other party, because the value of a useless pill formula was really too low. After the two of them parted, Jiang Li carried the cloth bag and hurried back to his room. The cloth bag contained 2 bottles of pills, a few stacks of talismans, and a crystal. It was Jiang Li's preparation for the upcoming mission. That useless pill formula was naturally the pill formula he copied from the pill chamber. Learning pill refinement was not easy. By the time he could practice it on his own, even if he was not an amateur, it would be too late. Thus, he passed the pill formula and spirit stones to Yan Hong and entrusted him to make a trip to the Immortal Ascension Pavilion to purchase the ingredients there and get the alchemists there to refine them. Initially, he only had this thought and wanted to give it a try. He did not expect it to really succeed. As for why he did not look for the alchemists in the sect to refine them, they were not fools. If he met someone who was more curious, that would be fatal. He had carefully selected this pill formula, and its effects were extremely powerful. This time, he was even more confident about going out now. Jiang Li had never seen this crystal with his own eyes before, but he had seen it in the memories of the original owner of this body. When he held it in his hand, it felt cold to the touch. After placing it in his palm for a moment, it emitted a gentle glow. This was an immortal opportunity stone. As the name implied, It was a stone used to test whether a person had the opportunity to become an immortal. In other words, it was used to test whether one had spiritual root aptitude. In the past, the Immortal Ascension Pavilion's fleet had brought this type of stone with them. The mortal kingdoms would test out each and every youth of suitable age before bringing them back. This was how Jiang Li and the others had embarked on the path of cultivation. I wonder how this Immortal Opportunity Stone works. Without such a magical stone, the scale of the immortal cultivation world would have shrunk by more than 10 times. Jiang Li took the Immortal Opportunity Stone and walked to the window of the room. On a small table beside the window, a clay pot filled with moist soil was quietly placed there. After pushing aside the soil, the seed buried in the soil was still exactly the same as it was a few months ago. Its appearance and size had not changed at all. Since you are called the spiritual root seed, let's see if you are related to the spiritual root. Jiang Li took out the seeds from the clay pot and placed them on the table next to the Immortal Opportunity Stone. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds passed. A layer of misty light was emitted from the Immortal Opportunity Stone. There's actually a reaction. Jiang Li was shocked. Could it be that a seed also had a spiritual root, or could this thing really grow a spiritual root? What did the spiritual root look like? Was it edible? He held the seed in his hands and studied it for a while, but just like before, he still did not discover anything. He had read through the encyclopedia of spiritual materials and seeds in the alchemy hall several times, but none of them looked exactly the same as this. That's strange. What should I do with you? Jiang Li thought for a moment before burying 2 spirit stones and the seed together. Since it had a spiritual root, it should be able to absorb spiritual qi. If he put 2 spirit stones in, it might have some effect. In the training hall 2 days later, Jiang Li met Xianxia and the rest again. The other party was high-spirited and in a great mood. Clearly, he was very satisfied with the title of number 1 among the new disciples. Xianxia, congratulations. I think it won't be long before I call you intersect senior. Everyone knew how to praise people. When a friend was in high spirits, it would not be wrong to praise him. Haha, that's not certain. The further you cultivate, the harder it becomes. I'm still far from breaking through to the late-stage Qi refinement realm. I won't be able to make it to the outer sect grand competition this year. In other words, it was only a matter of time before he broke through to the late-stage Qi refinement realm. Right now, those senior brothers and sisters in the late-stage Qi refinement realm in the outer sect were only suppressing him by relying on their accumulated cultivation over time. When he broke through, he would take down the outer sect competition in one go. His voice was not soft, causing many people to glance at him. A few senior brothers who had always been very powerful in the outer sect looked over with unhappy expressions. However, the outer sect had its own rules. The new disciples of the first year could not be touched. The sect had to ensure that new disciples with potential had the time to develop. Otherwise, all of them would be extorted by the senior disciples. If a gap between generations appeared, the sect would not be able to grow. Chapter 32, Coffin. After meeting up, they headed towards the mission area. Do you have a target for the mission? In the circle, Xianxia, Qianfen, Wang Liyuliang, Lu Qianqian and the rest were familiar with each other. Jiang Li and Yan Hong did not hang out with them all the time, so their relationship was naturally slightly worse. External missions required a comprehensive consideration of distance, position, difficulty, possible enemies, things to prepare, etc. It was impossible to make a decision on the spot. They must have discussed this before. The only person who did not know about the details was Jiang Li. Although I gained quite a lot from the previous harvesting mission, I have been exploring in the forest. There is a shortage of supplies in the forest and I have to be on guard against any dangers. It is indeed too tiring. Everyone else agreed with Xianxia, especially Lu Qianqian. She was going crazy after not showering for half a month. So this time, we plan to accept a mission in a mortal city. Jiang Li looked at the second mission board in the mission area. It was a mission recommended to mid-stage Qi refinement realm disciples. Compared to the mission given to the initial stage Qi refinement realm, the reward for this mission was obviously a level higher. In contrast, the difficulty of the mission was naturally higher. Some simple combat missions, such as hunting or cleaning up some of the lowest-level demonic beasts, could already be seen on the board. So mortal kingdoms also have the ability to issue missions to cultivation sects. Jiang Li took a closer look, and to his surprise, he did find quite a number of requests issued by the mortal kingdom. In any case, the cultivation world relies on the mortal world. The cultivation seeds that join the sect every year and the food supplies that we use, aren't they all from the mortal countries? As a reward, the immortal cultivation sect has a certain obligation to protect the mortal kingdoms. Of course, every time a mission is issued, the price that has to be paid will make a country suffer. Xianxia had an immortal background, so she knew more about this than Jiang Li. But thinking about it, regardless of the form of development, the basic population construction was of utmost importance. If people were eaten up by demons and monsters, wouldn't cultivating become pointless? This is the mission we are going to accept. A large number of children are in a coma in the southern Seal Kingdom. The specific details of the mission were not mentioned, but there were no casualties. It is just an ordinary investigation mission. We can relax. Even if we can't complete it, there won't be any danger. Xianxia handed him a few pages of information. Jiang Li took a few glances. Just as he said, it was just a simple inspection mission. All right, I have no objections. When do we set off? Appraisal. Name Xianxia, gender, male, class, cultivator level, mid-stage Qi refinement, danger level, medium. Name Qianfen, gender, male, class, cultivator level, initial stage Qi refinement, danger level, low. Name Wang Liyuliang, gender, male, class, cultivator level, initial stage Qi refinement, danger level, low. Name Lu Qianqian, gender, female, class, cultivator level, initial stage Qi refinement, danger level, low. Jiang Li's appraisal skill swept through the 7 people. In the cultivation sect, it had been a long time since Jiang Li had used appraisal to scan people. He was afraid to use it casually. If some powerful cultivator discovered this, he would be in deep trouble. However, Jiang Li could be considered to have a deep understanding of the few of them. Their strength was definitely inferior to his, so there was no harm in appraising them. Among them, the mid-stage Qi refinement realm Xianxia was undoubtedly the strongest. The medium danger level meant that he already had the ability to cause some injuries to Jiang Li. After they agreed to set off the next day, they left to make their final preparations. Jiang Li arrived at the outer sect graveyard. The closer he got to the center, the lower the temperature became. When he reached the center of the graveyard, he could see that there were many ice crystals mixed in the dark soil. This was the place where he had always cultivated. The 15 ghostwood tree wooden stakes were also buried here. Jiang Li's interest was suddenly piqued. He walked up, squatted down, and slapped the ground with a single hand while letting out a low grunt. Impure world reincarnation, rise. As soon as he finished speaking, a pitch-black coffin slowly rose from the ground in the center of the circle formed by the 15 ghostwood tree wooden stakes. On top of the coffin, there was a thick and long chain wrapped around it. As the coffin rose, there was a rustling sound. All right, this was not impure world reincarnation, and inside this coffin was nothing more than a zombie. Jiang Li had been in the outer sect graveyard for a long time, but he was not just meditating. He spent quite a bit of time selecting a complete corpse that was about to awaken into a zombie. Furthermore, judging from the tombstone, it was originally a late-stage Qi refinement disciple from 70 years ago. However, due to an accident, it died early on the path of cultivation and thus lay in this place where no one cared about. Due to some special arrangements made during the sect's burial, the yin qi and corpse qi were suppressed, preventing it from truly becoming a zombie for a long time. It was not until Jiang Li dug it out and used the zombie puppet technique to plant the zombie seed that the shackles binding it were released. After dismantling the setup, the yin qi and corpse qi that had accumulated for decades caused this corpse to transform into a bloodthirsty white zombie with an inch-long white fur in front of Jiang Li. However, before the zombie transformation, the zombie seed had already been deeply implanted into the corpse. Even after the zombie transformation, the white zombie had no ability to break free from Jiang Li's control. After some processing and guidance, Jiang Li placed the white zombie and a large pile of items of extreme yin into the coffin made of ghostwood. Then he used the chains that tied up 1,000 prisoners who had been sentenced to death at the execution ground. In the end, he buried the coffin into the Feng Shui formation core formed from 15 ghostwood tree wooden stakes. It had been nourished by the dense yin qi and corpse qi in the outer sex burial mound for several months. Now, it could finally be used. Grabbing the chain with one hand, Jiang Li lifted up the coffin, slung it over his shoulder and turned to leave. With his current strength, this coffin of more than 100 kilograms of weight was nothing. Jiang Li Yu. The next day, when everyone gathered at the entrance of the scripture storage valley, everyone, including the disciples guarding the entrance, were shocked by Jiang Li's luggage. They did not know if they should say that he was not afraid of death or that his brain was not good. He brought a coffin with him when he went out on a mission. To what extent was he afraid that he would not be able to have a place to sleep after he died? Chapter 33, Southern Seal Kingdom. Faced with the crowd's doubts, Jiang Li could only explain that it was due to a special cultivation method that he had no choice but to do so. They all knew that Jiang Li often stayed in the graveyard to cultivate. It did not seem unreasonable for him to bring a coffin when he went out now. After settling the procedures, everyone rented a spirit colt carriage from the sect and set off. The distance between the Southern Seal Kingdom and the Southern Seal Kingdom was not far. If they traveled day and night in the carriage, they would arrive in 3 days. After all, it was impossible for the sect to let their disciples run too far to carry out missions. Jiang Li and the others were seated in a carriage. They followed the path that someone had cut out and sped towards a certain direction. During this period, they could not help but stop to rest and start a fire to cook. Xianxia and the rest had experienced it before, so they knew what to take note of when they went out to camp. Along the way, they did not have to worry about food and drinks. Xianxia, that petite girl, actually sang well. From time to time, she would sing a few songs, bringing a lot of joy to the boring journey. In this world, the Great Mountain region was only a small region in the 9 provinces and was relatively barren and remote. However, to Jiang Li and the other Qi refinement realm cultivators who could not fly, the vastness was unimaginable. In any case, Jiang Li still could not remember how many mortal kingdoms there were in the Great Mountain region. The Southern Seal Kingdom was one of them. In terms of size and population, it was less than a third of the Great Goose Kingdom that Jiang Li originated from. Moreover, it was backed by a desert of sand. The land was dry, and its population was less than 10 million. It was said that this incident had a wide range of influence. There were as many as 2,000 children who were unconscious. It was only because of this that the king of the Southern Seal Kingdom could no longer sit still and paid a price to send people to issue a commission in the Southern Seal Kingdom. As they got closer and closer to the end of the journey, Jiang Li felt a bit strange. The air became even drier. The soil along the way gradually turned from rich black soil to yellow soil and sand that were even more unfavorable to plant growth. It was midsummer, and the flowers and trees by the roadside were supposed to be full of life. However, at a glance, all the plants in the forest appeared to be wilting. The leaves of many plants were dyed with a withered yellow color of autumn. Jiang Li had a wood attribute spiritual root, so it was inevitable that he would be more sensitive to such matters than others. Looking at the map provided by the sect, There was a huge desert behind the southern Seal Kingdom that had no clear boundaries. If the governance of the desert was poor and the soil was severely sandy, it was not impossible for the fertile land of the southern Seal Kingdom to lose nutrition and moisture. However, he looked at his surroundings. There were trees everywhere, and on the land around the villages and towns of the southern Seal Kingdom, there was a large plot of rice farmland. So that was not it. He muttered to himself as he had a bad feeling. Could the large-scale coma of children be related to this phenomenon? After passing through the last dense forest, Jiang Li and the others stuck their heads out from the carriage. They finally saw the location of this mission, the southern Seal Kingdom. Overdose of clear sight pills added status. Enhanced clear sight. Enhanced clear sight. Dynamic vision increased by 200%, vision range increased by 200%, night vision increased by 50%. Duration, infinity, minus. Jiang Li himself was a cultivator, and he had sharp ears and eyes. Coupled with the effects of this buff, his eyes could already be used as binoculars. With his current astonishing vision, Jiang Li could clearly see the city walls when others could only see them vaguely. In the farmland outside the city, the hardworking farmers could be seen, along with the soldiers who were guarding the city gate listlessly. There was no martial law in the capital of the southern Seal Kingdom. The soldiers and residents were very lax. It seemed that this country did not lie about the mission. There were no casualties and no clear enemies. However, when Jiang Li and the others' carriage approached, they still did not see any children playing in the fields. The spirit horses in the cultivation world were abnormally divine, and the carriage they pulled was also the size of a small room, far exceeding the standard of ordinary carriages. Most importantly, there was a black coffin tied to the top of the carriage. Therefore, all the peddlers and foot soldiers they met along the way looked at the carriage with a strange gaze. However, to them, anyone who could sit in a carriage was definitely a noble. No one dared to be disrespectful. Tusk, these country bumpkins dare to stare at us. They really don't know anything. They don't have any respect for immortals. Although they were only at the lowest level of the chi refinement realm in the cultivation world, in the eyes of mortals, they were no different from immortals. Although it was somewhat shameful for them to say this, it was not wrong in the mortal countries. It was just like how every time the Immortal Ascension Pavilion was selecting disciples with spiritual roots, the ruler of a kingdom had to bow and follow by his side. We have to show them what we can do first. The carriage stopped in front of the city gate. Xianxia reached out a hand and a fireball grew bigger in his palm. Soon, it was the size of a basketball. Flame creation art. Xianxia had a strong fire attribute spiritual root, so he had chosen this technique with Jiang Li back then. A few seconds later, the fireball suddenly shot upwards. As it flew, it turned into a vivid and lifelike flaming bird. It circled in the air for a while before disappearing with a puff. Xianxia's flaming bird might be useless in actual combat, but it was more than enough to scare people. This was especially true for the ignorant commoners of the uncivilized era. They would kowtow to a tiny monster, let alone an immortal like this. In an instant, everyone near the city gate, regardless of age or gender, knelt down in a crowd. The immortals of the Scripture Storage Valley have arrived. Why is the king of the southern Seal Kingdom not coming out to pay his respects? Driven by spiritual chi, the sound waves spread out. After shouting, Jiang Li and the others urged their spiritual horses into the city. How could they, as immortals, wait for mortals? The carriage slowly moved along the straight main road. The crowd knelt on both sides of the carriage, and no one dared to look up at the carriage. Very quickly, in the direction of the royal palace, another carriage was rushing over. However, the other party clearly did not dare to crash into the immortal carriage, stopping at the end of the road from afar. A middle-aged man dressed in gorgeous clothes ran over while surrounded by a group of servants. "Lord Immortals, are you the immortals of the Scripture Storage Valley? I'm the king of the Southern Seal Kingdom, and I'm here to welcome you." The servants were also kneeling on both sides of the road. They did not dare to speak. As for the middle-aged king, he clasped his hands and bowed. It had been a long time since he had done something like this. Chapter 34. The Sleeping Children. In the end, the reason why the king of the Southern Seal Kingdom treated them so well was because he had seen too few cultivators and did not understand them. Therefore, he was cautious and fearful. Originally, there were many cultivators who had no future in the cultivation world and were greedy for riches and honor in the mortal world. Many of them would be willing to join a secular dynasty and become a freeloader or even control the royal family. However, these secular dynasties had long been regarded as the private properties of the major sects of the cultivation world. How could they allow those poor rogue cultivators to snatch their food? Rogue cultivators were not allowed to join kingdoms, and sects looked down on mortal kingdoms. This was the reason for the current situation. Jiang Li and the others walked out of the carriage. The king of the Southern Seal Kingdom was surprised at their young age. In the eyes of the public, immortals were all white-haired old men. But he did not dare to speculate. "Lord Immortal Masters, you have come from afar. Please come to the palace and sit down. Let us arrange a grand banquet to welcome you." This king was really enthusiastic, and the banquet he prepared must not be too bad. A few disciples had strange thoughts, but Xianxia, who was standing at the front, had no intention of enjoying it. "We are here for the commission from the Southern Seal Kingdom. Hurry up and tell us the details. And where are all those unconscious children now? Take us there." Since he said so, no one would refute him. The king pulled a few officials from the side of the road. After giving them some instructions, he returned to personally lead the way for Jiang Li and the others. "Lord Immortal Masters, more than 2,000 children have fainted overnight. It has been 13 days since then. The best physicians and imperial physicians in our country have all seen them. They have used all kinds of herbs and precious medicine, but they just won't wake up. My poor 13th, 15th, and 17th child are all like this. I'm so anxious. Immortal Masters, please save them." Everyone looked at each other. "Your children are already like this, and you still want to treat us to a banquet." It seemed that no matter how much one loved something, once there were too many of them, their feelings would be diluted. Regardless of whether it was love or kinship, they were the same. No children starved to death after 13 days of coma. We asked the people to feed the children with clear porridge. Although the children were asleep, they were fortunate enough to eat it. That was how they managed to survive until you arrived. Everyone understood, and Xianxia continued to ask, "Did anything special happen before or after the children fainted, or did they eat anything special?" However, this simple and ordinary question made the king of the Southern Seal Kingdom unable to answer for a long time. "Forget it, you should let the people below ask. You have to ask every child's family and hometown. Don't miss any details." Jiang Li's sudden words made Xianxia react. How could a king care about such trivial matters? "Yes, yes, yes, I'll give the instructions immediately." With a wave of his hand, a eunuch who had been following closely behind immediately ran over. After receiving the order, he immediately ran away to look for the officials to issue the decree. Soon they followed the king into the palace. Along the way, they could see many commoners carrying their children towards the palace. There were also quite a few soldiers and officials walking through the streets to guide the people. When the citizens heard that immortals had descended and could help them treat their children, they did not dare to delay. They either carried or brought their children and rushed to the palace. By the time Jiang Li and the others arrived, the square of the royal palace was already covered with various colored cloths. One by one, unconscious children lay there in a vast array. It was not that Jiang Li and the others were slow, but the king who was leading them was too slow. He looked strong, but in reality, he was quite feeble. The only thing he was good at was to work out in bed. This journey had really exhausted him. Jiang Li and the others were afraid that the king would pass out just like that. "Immortal Masters, please come this way." A few other noble-looking fellows stepped forward and took over the king, who was exhausted. They led Jiang Li and the others to a side hall. "Why are we still going there? Aren't all the unconscious children here?" Qianfan did not understand. He was born in the pugilistic world and had not experienced so many twists and turns. "Oh, how can we let the immortal masters treat the citizens under the scorching sun? It's better to go to the Imperial Physician Institution in our side palace and bring the children over one by one," an old man in luxurious clothes hurriedly replied. But while he said that, the truth was that the people lying in the open field were the children of common farmers. As for those who were lying in the Imperial Physician Institution and being carefully treated, they were all of royal blood. Even the ones who had set up a shed next to the Imperial Physician Institution were all sons of rich officials. This was the disparity of nobles and commoners. The more people there are, the more we'll be able to find the pattern. I think we should check the plaza first. Jiang Li's sudden words caused the other disciples to be stunned, but they all stopped moving. On one hand, Jiang Li's words made sense. On the other hand, how could a mortal's words compare to Jiang Li's? The high-ranking officials and nobles' expressions immediately became a bit ugly. They felt a bit embarrassed, but even the king did not dare say anything, so how could they dare bare their fangs? Jiang Li and the rest walked to a child's side. It was a boy with a red face and a thick yellow snot on one side of his nose. He was about 10 years old, but Jiang Li did not notice anything unusual. Although he was comatose, it was more like sleeping. Other than being unable to wake up no matter what, they would snore, turn over, and even talk in their sleep and kick their blankets. He looked perfectly normal. Even someone who was drunk would be in a deeper sleep than them. Xianxia. Xianxia only called her name, and Xianxia immediately understood. She rubbed her slender fingers, and 3 silver needles appeared between her fingers. With a flash of silver light, the 3 needles entered the boy's body. Fortunately, the parents of these children had already been chased out. Otherwise, if they were seen by others, the doctor-patient conflict would probably erupt again. This needle of mine is smeared with the venom of the red-eyed thorn worm. It will cause intense pain if pricked. Mortals definitely cannot endure it. Xianxia was a sweet and petite girl, but to think she would use such a vicious hidden weapon. After the silver needle entered the boy's body, the boy immediately reacted. First, his body shook, and then he began to squirm uneasily. The eyes under the boy's eyelids also rolled quickly, and his eyelashes kept trembling as if he was about to open them at any moment. Chapter 35, Monk. The few of them surrounded the child and watched as he twisted and rolled around. In the end, he actually cried in his sleep. However, his eyes refused to open no matter what, unable to wake up from his dream. It really is impossible. Everyone was not discouraged. They had already expected this situation. If the pain alone could make these children wake up, they would not be here. The imagination of humans was boundless, and the torture of various countries was not to be trifled with. Xianxia looked interested. Her small hand gently brushed across the boy's body, and the 3 blood-stained silver needles returned to her hand. "How is it?" everyone hurriedly asked. The reason why they were so confident this time was largely because of Xianxia. She was a doctor who had learned the medical skills of the cultivation world and was quite skilled. "It's not poison, but his blood smells a little strange." Xianxia squatted down again, and 2 balls of clear water appeared on her hands. She pressed them onto the boy's body and started a more detailed examination. Xianxia must have had some experience before she joined the sect. Although the cultivation hall in the scripture storage valley had imparted such knowledge, it was only superficial and was not enough to support her to this extent. That's right, Xianxia's family has a medical legacy. Although they are not very powerful, they have their own specialties in healing and treating illnesses. They have a great reputation in the mortal world. Legend has it that there is no illness that the Lu family cannot cure. Xianxia explained to Jiang Li, sounding very confident. Jiang Li nodded. Seeing that she did not have any results for the time being, he circled around all the children and threw appraisal at them from time to time. Name: Xiaosan. Gender: male. Class: none. Level: none. Danger level: none. Name: Zhang Aniu. Gender: male. Class: none. Level: none. Danger level: none. Name: Zhang Zai Ohua. Gender: female. Class: none. Level: none. Danger level: none. Unfortunately, the level of appraisal was still not high enough, and it could not identify many useful things. After a round, he still had some gains. These kids were mostly between 8 and 14 years old, neither older or younger. So, what did they have in common? After walking around, he realized that Lu Xianxia was still frowning and studying. As for the others, most of them practiced offensive spell techniques, which were completely useless when it came to healing. Hence, they were arranged to find some locals from the southern Seal Kingdom to make inquiries. Xianxia requested for them to do everything in detail. Logically speaking, they should have something in common with such a large-scale incident. What exactly caused them to become like this? Xianxia, I have a spell that I can try too, Jiang Li politely informed Xianxia. Give it a try, just don't kill anyone. Xianxia saw that Lu Xianxia was perspiring more and more, and he started to feel uncertain. It was good to try something now if there was a chance. Jiang Li flipped over a youth who looked slightly older than him. The back of his head was facing the sky as he lay on the ground. He formed hand seals and muttered something. A green light flickered from his fingers and slowly flew into the back of the youth's head. Zombie puppet technique. This technique could even control broken corpses, so it was naturally easy to control living people. If it was a cultivator, they could still resist with their spiritual qi and will, but these were just mortals. Stand up, Jiang Li pointed his fingers at the youth on the ground. The green light was constantly entering the back of his head. The young man's body was like a puppet with strings attached. Limb by limb, he moved stiffly. Under Jiang Li's control, his body stood up inch by inch. He's up, he's really up. Immortal master, this is indeed the work of an immortal. When the surrounding mortal officials saw this change, they immediately became excited and fanatical. They wanted nothing more than to kneel down and kowtow to Jiang Li before erecting a monument for him. However, right at this moment, the young man's expression suddenly became incomparably wrinkled and hideous, as if he was enduring an extremely great pain. Wake up! The external will force the youth's eyes to open slowly. What surprised Jiang Li was that this fellow could actually resist. His body spasmed and twisted, looking extremely strange. One of his eyelids was pulled up forcefully, but what was exposed was still the white of his bloodshot eyes. On the other side, his eyelids closed again after a little. He's actually able to resist. Jiang Li was shocked. This was his first time controlling a mortal, yet he actually did not succeed. He could clearly feel that there was another tenacious will in this young man's body that was vying for control. Could this young man be some peerless genius? Could he resist a mid-stage qi refinement spell technique with just the will of a mortal? This was too exaggerated. Jiang Li was still in shock when suddenly an explosive shout came from behind him. "Vile demon, how dare you commit such a crime?" The Buddhist monk's voice roared like thunder. Jiang Li only felt a gust of vicious wind coming from behind him at high speed. The hair on his back instantly stood on end. Someone launched a sneak attack. Subconsciously, he released his spiritual qi. The skin on his back instantly turned pitch black and was even stiffer than a rock. But in the next moment, a yellow figure flashed past him, bringing dust with it as it ran towards the youth that Jiang Li was controlling. Huh! A fist the size of a clay pot struck out, directly hitting the youngster's thin chest. The sounds of bones breaking rang out in succession. The unlucky youth who might have been a heaven-warping genius was flung like a rag. After flying through the air, he crashed heavily into the ground. HMPH, I can tell at one glance that you're not human. In the end, the monk in yellow monk robes said this. Jiang Li and the others were speechless. The officials of the Southern Seal Kingdom did not know how to react. Senior brother, who are you? Jiang Li, who was the closest to him, spoke first. The monk appeared out of nowhere. Before Xianxia and the rest could react, he had already passed through them. The speed at which the other party approached was extremely fast, much faster than him when he was not under pill poisoning. The punch was extremely powerful, and it was obvious that he was not an easy opponent. However, this enemy did not attack him. Instead, he sent a weak mortal flying. He really could not tell what his opponent wanted to do. Hey, junior brother, don't stand on ceremony. We should help each other out when we leave the mountains to train. How can we not help when we see such vile demons hurting others? This monk's title is Zheng Yuan, disciple of the benevolent travel temple. Junior brother you are. The monk turned around with a forthright smile. Jiang Li was infected by his confident smile and started to doubt himself. Could it be that he had misjudged him? Was that young man really a hidden demon? Chapter 36, The Birth of the Demon. May I ask this senior brother how you determined that person was a demon? At this moment, Xianxia and the rest rushed over and stood together with Jiang Li. The spiritual qi in their bodies seemed to be gathering, ready to defend against any sudden attacks. How isn't it obvious? At this moment, Monk Zheng Yuan was a little puzzled. His forthright smile slowly faded as he walked over to the youth he had sent flying. This demon's body was filled with yin qi just now. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws, preparing to harm others. If he isn't a demon, what else can he be? Cough, cough, cough. Right at this time, the youth who was lying on the ground like a lump of mud suddenly coughed a few times that sounded like his breath was clogged. After a lump of foam, blood spurted out from his mouth and nose. His deeply sunken chest actually rose and fell again. This youth was actually still alive. Why did that yin qi disappear? The cultivator, who claimed to be a disciple of benevolent travel temple, scratched his head, still not understanding what had happened. Xianxia, go and see if there's any hope of saving him. Senior brother, the yin qi just now was actually the effect of my spell technique. This young man is indeed not a demon. He's the same as the other children in the square. It's only because of some unknown reason that he's been unconscious. Senior brother, please step back a bit so that our junior sister can see if she can treat his injuries. Jiang Li explained the general situation of the children in the Southern Seal Kingdom. He raised his right hand and condensed a ball of yin qi as proof. Seeing the yin qi in Jiang Li's hand, Zheng Yuan's eyes flashed with a hint of displeasure, but it quickly disappeared. This is actually the case. There's such a strange illness. Amitabha, I've accidentally injured a good person. I have sinned, I have sinned. Zheng Yuan looked like a reasonable person. After knowing that everyone was wary of him, he retreated a distance. Junior sister, please heal the injured. This is the jade bone flesh regeneration pill of my benevolent travel temple. I wish to express my apologies and hope to help this person. As he spoke, he even took out a bottle of medicinal pills from his sleeve and handed it over. Jiang Li and the others stepped forward to separate him from the injured. Only then did they allow Lu Qianqian to stand behind them and begin to heal her with spell techniques. Xianxia took the pill carefully and opened it to take a sniff. He did not find anything wrong with it and felt much more relieved. On one hand, their strength was limited. On the other hand, they had no relationship with that youth. They had no intention of standing up for him. In reality, when Jiang Li released the yin attribute spiritual qi just now, he was still guarding against the other party who might suddenly attack in the name of justice. At the very least, in terms of cultivation base, a monk at the late-stage qi refinement realm was able to deal with all these rookies by himself. Under such circumstances, it was better to resolve the issue and settle it properly. Senior brother Zheng Yuan is righteous. We will do our best to save that youth. It's his fortune to be able to eat such a precious pill in his lifetime. Cultivators who injured mortals and knew how to compensate them were actually quite rare. Moreover, it was the jade bone flesh regeneration pill, a famous high-grade yellow-rank medicinal pill among yellow-rank medicinal pills. Its effects were good, but its production quantity was low. Outer sect disciples like them were even unable to find a way to purchase it, so how could they bear to feed it to a mortal? Speaking of which, this medicinal pill was probably more of a way to silence him. After all, feeding a mortal pills was fine if it was a low-grade yellow rank, but a high-grade yellow rank medicinal pill was not much different from directly slapping him to death. Well, there's something else. Looking at the clothes of junior brothers and sisters, you must be disciples of the Scripture Storage Valley. The relationship between the major sects of the Great Mountain region was not bad. It was said that there would often be interactions between disciples of the sect. In history, there were even many marriage relationships between the sects. It was very normal for them to know each other's disciple attire. It was only because these rookies were inexperienced that they did not recognize him. That's right, we're disciples of the Scripture Storage Valley. We've come here to solve the problem of these unconscious children. Xianxia answered truthfully. It was unlikely that the other party had a feud with the sect. Otherwise, that punch would have landed on Jiang Li. And when you came, did you see a cemetery nearby, or some dangerous territory with especially deep yin qi? Everyone finally understood what he was asking. It turned out that he had asked the local officials for directions at the beginning. Then, he had suddenly seen the youth controlled by Jiang Li, which was why he attacked. I'm sorry, we've never seen the cemetery, but the king and officials of the Southern Seal Kingdom are around. They might be able to help you. Senior brother Zhang Yuan, did something happen? The monk shook his head. It was unknown if he did not want to say more or if he did not understand the situation himself. If you haven't seen it, then forget it. Recently, this region hasn't been very peaceful. It seems that a demon has appeared. It's best if you don't leave the city here. After settling the matters here, don't stay and return to the sect earlier. Jiang Li and the others looked at each other, and their expressions were unsightly. Could it be that the unconsciousness of these children was related to that demon? This was truly a troublesome mission. Thank you for your advice, senior brother Zhang Yuan. We will take note. After thanking him, they introduced him to the king of the Southern Seal Kingdom and asked him the same question. However, the local officials and the king's replies were disappointing. Cemetery, what's that? Oh, a place where the dead are buried. I'm sorry, immortal masters and master monk, but we don't have such a thing. Our Southern Seal Kingdom has always done water burial. If a person cannot return to the arms of the Mother River after death, we believe it is the greatest blasphemy against the dead. There was actually no ground burial in this country, so there was no way to talk about the cemetery. The king and officials of the Southern Seal Kingdom had never even heard of the term cemetery. It could be seen that this custom had been around for a long time. Now that they thought about it, it was true that they had never seen any graves or tombstones on their way here. This was rather abnormal for a mortal country with limited transportation abilities. It was impossible for them to bury their corpses too far away. Even in the modern era where cremation laws had been implemented for a long time, there were cement cemeteries everywhere on the mountain, but there were none here. It seemed that what they said was true. Monk Zhang Yuan did not find what he wanted, but he reminded them in a distant and obscure manner that they should not spread the news of what had just happened and quickly left. This was only the beginning. News of the appearance of this demon seemed to have spread far and wide. As they were leaving, another 4 or 5 waves of cultivators arrived to inquire. Among them were rogue cultivators and disciples from other sects nearby. Their target was the same, but they were clearly not of the same faction. After Jiang Li and the others met up with the 2 groups of cultivators, they unanimously believed that they should not be dragged deeper into this matter. A bunch of newbies at the initial stage Qi refinement realm had yet to reach the stage where they could participate in such matters. They retreated to the palace of the Southern Seal Kingdom, avoiding outsiders and letting the king and officials receive them themselves. They continued to research the unconscious children. The sooner they completed their mission, the sooner they could leave this troublesome place. Chapter 37. The Smell in the Blood. Xianxia, how is it? Can he still be saved? In the inner hall of the palace, Lu Xianxia was holding a ball of water in one hand and a silver needle in the other. She was performing a complicated operation on the injured youth's body. Monk Zheng Yuan was still a cultivator from Benevolent Travel Temple. His physical strength was extremely terrifying. Even Jiang Li, who had a tough skin and thick flesh, would not feel okay if he was punched. Even if he had held back with that punch, it was already extremely lucky for a mortal like this youth to be able to still stay alive. It's hard to say yet. I used the spring water technique to temporarily save his life. Then, I used silver needles and strings to stitch up his internal organs and reconnect his broken bones. However, this injury is still too severe. The chance of surviving is very low. I'm afraid there's not even a 10% chance. Seeing that Lu Xianxian's forehead was covered in sweat, Xianxia stepped forward and wiped her forehead with a white cloth. Just do your best. Don't overuse your spiritual qi. Xianxia was obviously not interested in saving the guy. If Zheng Yuan had not left a bottle of pills for them to save him, they might have given up long ago. There are only 3 jade bone flesh regeneration pills in this bottle. The 8 of us can't distribute them equally. For the market price, high-grade yellow-rank medicinal pills usually cost 10 spirit stones per pill. However, the quality and effect of these 3 medicinal pills have not been appraised, so the price will be lower when placed on the market. That's why if anyone needs it now, you can exchange for it using 8 spirit stones each and split the amount amongst the others. If all of you don't need it, then we can distribute the sale amount after we return to the sect. At this point, Xianxia took out the bottle of pills that Zheng Yuan had given him. He shook it gently, and the sound was crisp. Obviously, there were not many pills inside. Xianxia did not rely on his cultivation level to get a larger share. The distribution plan was very reasonable. It seemed that he still valued this new disciple circle and planned to continue managing it well. Very fair. If you have no objections, then give me that bottle of jade bone flesh regeneration pill. Here are 21 spirit stones. It was worth 24 spirit stones, but Jiang Li was also one of the 8, so he naturally had a share. Therefore, he only needed to give 3 spirit stones to each person. Jiang Li had always been the type of person who could not look away when he saw medicinal pills. He naturally would not let this kind of opportunity go. Other than him, the other 7 people were only slightly richer than Xianxia. The others probably would not be able to fork out more than 20 spirit stones. Therefore, these high-grade yellow-rank jade bone flesh regeneration pills ended up in his hands. Jiang Li, I can't believe you've earned so many spirit stones. Tell me what kind of missions you're doing in the mission area. They were rather surprised by Jiang Li's generosity. Originally, they had thought that their last mission had gone smoothly and that the new outer sect disciples were still considered to be wealthy. Never had they imagined that Jiang Li had already surpassed them silently. It's nothing much. Elder Red Hair from the Alchemy Hall took an interest in me, so I am now his registered disciple. Sometimes, I will help out and earn some spirit stones. He displayed his registered disciple identity token and received a round of envious gazes. A registered disciple who was primarily testing pills was still a registered disciple. As long as he did not say anything, who would know? Gasp, Jiang Li, you actually have a talent in pill refinement. How long has it been since you entered the sect? You've already become a registered disciple of an elder. In fact, that's an elder of the Alchemy Hall. Jiang Li, you're really impressive. Jiang Li, big brother Jiang, will have to rely on you in the future. Jiang Li, why didn't you say so earlier? Congratulations. As expected, once he mentioned that he was a registered disciple, their attitude towards him immediately became even friendlier. Jiang Li received the same treatment as when Xianxia broke through to the mid-stage Qi refinement realm a few days ago. There were all sorts of flattering words, and the words were basically the same, making him and Xianxia feel awkward. Pill refinement requires a lot of spirit stones. Right now, I'm just a handyman. I'm still far from being able to refine pills myself. Jiang Li made a few excuses before moving away from this topic. It's finally over. I didn't expect that saving a mortal would exhaust me to this extent. Xianxia finally finished her treatment. The young man, who was about to lose his life, was successfully brought back to the world of the living. The result of the surgery was also perfect. But what can we do next? When I was treating him just now, I checked his entire body. He was not poisoned, nor did he have any other wounds. I still haven't found the reason for their coma. Sorry, everyone. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint everyone this time. Xianxia, who was everyone's hope, said that. It was impossible for everyone not to be disappointed. However, there was nothing they could do. How could they blame the young lady? Don't say that, Xianxia. This isn't your fault to begin with. Plus, we can't conclude so easily. I believe the coma this time is very likely related to the birth of that demon. Perhaps we should wait a bit longer. When the monster is exterminated by other cultivators, those children might wake up on their own. Xianxia seemed to be interested in Xianxia and immediately comforted her. Xianxia, I remember you said that the previous child's blood had a strange smell, right? When they were showing off their love, Jiang Li interrupted them at an inappropriate time. Yes, but I didn't find any poison in the blood. I've also tested the blood with other animals. It doesn't make them sleep. Xianxia gave her conclusion. As a medical practitioner, she naturally would not let go of such an obvious abnormality. But this anomaly had been proved harmless, and there was no point in bringing it up again. Does this child's blood have the same smell? Jiang Li asked again. No, I should say that his blood has another strange smell. Xianxia hesitated for a moment before explaining in detail. I've used silver needles to test the blood of these children. There's a little more smell in their blood than normal people. Although they're different, it's still there. However, I don't think that's a problem. The cultivation world is so big. The long-term effects of geography and climate will cause a huge difference between people. That smell is probably unique to the children of the Southern Seal Kingdom. It doesn't mean anything. Jiang Li, do you think this is the reason why they fainted? Xianxia felt that Jiang Li was just a layman in terms of medical skills. Human skin, eyes, and hair could be different in color. The difference in smell was nothing. No, I'm not sure what caused them to faint, but don't you think that him being alive is abnormal? What are the chances of a mortal child surviving a strike from a late-stage Qi refinement realm cultivator? What if he survived not because of a coincidence? As he spoke, Jiang Li took out a crystal from his pocket and placed it in the heavily injured youth's hand. A moment later, a layer of mist-like light slowly emerged from the crystal. Chapter 38, Parasitic Item. This is an immortal opportunity stone. The immortal opportunity stone could be said to be something that had changed their lives. Even after several months, everyone still remembered this type of crystal that was not that beautiful. Yes, this is an immortal opportunity stone. This was precisely the immortal opportunity stone that Jiang Li had asked Yan Hong to buy from the Immortal Ascension Pavilion. When he went out on the mission, he felt that it might be useful, so he took it out with him. The skill-imparting elder once said that for those with spiritual roots, even if they did not embark on the path of cultivation, their bodies would automatically absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, and they would also have stronger bodies and longer lives than ordinary people. That's why I suspected that this young man has a spiritual root. Jiang Li found a reason to express his guess. However, in reality, those with spiritual roots and latent talent were slightly better than ordinary people, but it was rather limited. His theory was actually rather far-fetched. Jiang Li had such suspicions and even took out the immortal opportunity stone to verify it. The most important reason was that his zombie puppet technique had been expelled. Before the youth was injured by Zhang Yuan, the seed planted in his body was expelled from his body by a certain force. If he had been able to resist Jiang Li's spell technique, it could be said that his willpower and talent were exceptional. However, to be able to achieve such a feat by himself was definitely not something a mortal could do. Jiang Li guessed that there was indeed something in the children's bodies. Those things were lodged in the bodies of these children, causing them to fall asleep. However, they could protect their lives when they were heavily injured and expel foreign objects when they were invaded. They could even bestow a host with a spiritual root. However, even if he has a spiritual root, this doesn't mean anything. Perhaps he didn't participate in the spiritual root test and was overlooked by the people from the Immortal Ascension Pavilion. The Outer Sect mission requires us to treat them and solve the problem of the Southern Seal Kingdom. If not, we will find out the reason and return. But what does an unconscious child have to do with our mission? They were still very confused as to why Jiang Li was saying all this. What if I say that the 2,000 youths in the square outside all have spiritual roots? Jiang Li's words were shocking without doubt. More than 2,000 people. Do all of them have spiritual roots? That's impossible. Xianxia and the rest subconsciously denied Jiang Li's guess. Even if spiritual root aptitude was not 1 in 10,000, it was basically only 1 in 1,000 people. In the Great Mountain region, there were hundreds of kingdoms, and each time the Immortal Ascension Assembly selected a soon-to-be disciple, they were less than 1 in 1,000,000. The Southern Seal Kingdom was only a small country, and they were in the capital. There were not many children between 8 to 14 years old. If what Jiang Li said was true, then the ratio of children with spiritual roots and latent talent would far surpass 1 in 10. Then the Southern Seal Kingdom would truly become the land blessed by heaven. If this was true, then the coma was no longer the issue. I can't believe it either. However, the world is huge and there are all kinds of strange things. We should test a few more children first and everything will be clear. The reason why Jiang Li dared to say this was naturally because he had already tried it before. After the monk left, he immediately used the Immortal Opportunity Stone to test dozens of children. All of them had positive reactions. Spiritual roots were not radishes that could be found all over the streets. It was impossible for such a large number of spiritual roots to appear at the same time without any external influence. He took back the Immortal Opportunity Stone and went to another room with everyone. There were many unconscious children lying inside. They waved for the palace maids and nannies who were feeding the children to leave. In order to avoid arousing suspicion, Jiang Li handed the Immortal Opportunity Stone to Xianxia and asked her to test them one by one. They blew out the lights, and the faint fog-like fluorescent light lit up the dim room. 1 could be due to a bizarre coincidence, 2 could be due to fate, and 3 could be caused by heaven's will. But what about 4, 5, 6, or even 7? After more than 100 children in this room had all been tested for their spiritual root aptitude, they were all so shocked that they could not speak. This Immortal Opportunity Stone, is it broken? When everyone thought about it, it was indeed possible. He quickly found a few children who were not unconscious to test it, but the Immortal Opportunity Stone did not react at all. As such, they had no choice but to believe it. They really have spiritual roots. This mission is no longer something we can handle. We have to report this to the sect as soon as possible. The faces of Jiang Li and the others who understood the situation became extremely serious. Then, does this mean that our mission has failed? In Xianxia's mind, she was still fixated on saving the children. For a moment, she could not figure out the severity of the matter. She thought that if she asked the sect for help before the mission was completed, it meant that the mission had failed. Xianxia, the mission is no longer important. Right now, whether they were unconscious or not, whether they could treat them, and whether they could find out the truth, were no longer the most important things. There were more than 2,000 potential cultivators with spiritual roots. According to the price of the Immortal Ascension Assembly, even the worst quality of inferior-grade spiritual roots could earn them 2 spirit stones. In the outer sect of the Scripture Storage Valley, although there were no missions to recruit new disciples, they would never reject cheap labor like outer sect disciples. With such a large number of potential cultivators, as long as this news was sent back to the sect, no matter how stingy the sect was, they would definitely receive a huge reward. Even if the 8 of them were to divide the profits equally, it would definitely not be worse than Jiang Li's 3 months' worth of revenue from testing pills. Xianxia explained, and the few of them quickly understood what she meant. They became extremely excited and nervous. Now, a lottery ticket that could be exchanged for a large amount of cash was placed in front of them. It all depended on how they were going to win the lottery. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's hurry back to the sect and report this," a disciple said excitedly. However, Jiang Li and Xianxia looked exceptionally serious. "It's not that simple," Jiang Li shook his head. "Do you still remember what the benevolent travel temple's monk Zheng Yuan said? He said it's best not to leave the city and return to the sect as soon as possible after completing the mission. We do not know the exact details of the demon's appearance. However, due to certain reasons, many cultivators have been attracted over." Everyone's excited faces darkened at this mention. In just one afternoon, 5 or 6 waves of cultivators had arrived at the palace. It was enough to see that a considerable number of cultivators had already gathered within the confines of the capital. Jiang Li and the others did not have social anxiety. The reason they entered the palace to avoid cultivators was to get away from trouble. After all, the sect cultivators here were easier to talk to. But in the case of rogue cultivators, although they usually appeared to be subservient, once they had a chance, they would turn into a demonic cultivator immediately and deal a fatal blow to you. Chapter 39, Twin Devils of the Thorn River. Just as the monk had said, the Southern Seal Kingdom was not peaceful recently. Besides, there are so many sleeping children in the palace today. It must have attracted the attention of someone with ulterior motives. Maybe someone is already monitoring our movements. We have to be careful from now on. Jiang Li reminded them, as everyone felt increasingly fearful upon thinking about it. More than 2,000 sleeping children were lying in the royal palace of the Southern Seal Kingdom. This situation could not be said to be strange, but very strange. People might think that the birth of the demon was related to this. Even if that was not the case, if they met someone who was meticulous and discovered that all these children had spiritual roots, it was not impossible. When the news was leaked, the rogue cultivators would capture these kids and sell them to the Immortal Ascension Pavilion. At the same time, they would also rob the few of them. That would be troublesome. Then what should we do? Everyone could not make up their minds. They were considered strong among the new disciples of the Scripture Storage Valley's outer sect, but they were just newbies. At the end of the day, they were still at the initial stage Qi refinement realm, and one of them was at the mid-stage Qi refinement realm. He had barely mastered a few spells and was considered a complete newbie. It was fine to bully mortals, but against other cultivators, they were too weak. In the territory of the Southern Seal Kingdom, is it closer to Benevolent Travel Temple or Southern Seal Kingdom? While everyone was at a loss, Jiang Li suddenly asked. The Scripture Storage Valley, of course. Otherwise, this mission wouldn't have been issued to our outer sect. After Xianxia replied, he also thought of something. "You mean to say?" "That's right. Although we don't know the details, the appearance of the demon has attracted quite a few cultivators. Even the disciples of the Benevolent Travel Temple are here. There's no reason for our Scripture Storage Valley to not send people." Jiang Li paused for a second and continued. "When we were in the sect, we didn't hear any news about the birth of the demon. There are 2 possibilities. 1. The news came after we set out on our journey. 2. The news is only spread among the inner sect disciples. Outer sect disciples have no way of knowing about it. I personally prefer the second possibility. Otherwise, a mere 5 days wouldn't be enough to gather so many cultivators. When Jiang Li finished speaking, everyone's eyes lit up. You're saying that it's very likely that the inner sect disciples and even sect elders of the sect are already here, or even in the city. Lu Xianxia, who had swallowed a qi recovery pill, looked much more energetic. If there were sect elders around, they would definitely be able to ensure their safety. Ordinary rogue cultivators would not dare to act rashly. It's not just a matter of safety. Inner sect disciples and sect elders definitely have communication spirit stones that can be used to contact the sect. As long as we find them to help contact the sect, our mission will be completed immediately. What they did not say was that perhaps most of the rewards would be taken away. But at this moment, this was already the best choice. Late at night, 4 shadows suddenly flashed across the royal palace of the Southern Seal Kingdom. 4 figures flashed out from the side hall of the palace, avoiding the patrolling guards like ghosts. After a few light leaps, they crossed the outer wall of the palace and stood on the street outside. Everyone be careful. Prioritize your own safety. Gather here in 4 hours. Xianxia's voice came from under the black hood. As soon as he finished speaking, the figures dispersed in 4 directions and quickly disappeared into the darkness. These 4 people were naturally Jiang Li, Xianxia, Qianfen, and Wang Liyuliang. After some discussion, it was decided that the 4 strongest people would go out at night to scout for information and try to find the sect elders or inner sect disciples in the scripture storage valley. I didn't expect that excluding Xianxia, that scholar-looking Wang Liyuliang is the strongest amongst them. Not only was Wang Liyuliang close to the mid-stage qi refinement realm, but his martial arts were also very impressive. While everyone was still at the initial stage of their immortal cultivation, this was still very useful. Compared to his opponent's nimble technique, even though Jiang Li's speed was swift, it was slightly less agile and more clumsy. He calculated in his heart that he would have to learn a travel-type body cultivation method in the future. His footsteps did not stop as he continued to run forward at high speed. Whoosh whoosh. Just as Jiang Li ran past a street, 2 long black nails that did not reflect the moonlight shot towards him from behind. Jiang Li, who was running, did not notice at all that the 2 long nails pierced through his lute bones at an extremely vicious and tricky angle. The huge force carried him along with the inertia of his running and sent him flying. He fell heavily onto the limestone road in front of him and lay there motionless. Haha, what disciple of a large sect? If he meets us brothers, he'll still be defeated. Big brother, the disciples of the sect are all very rich. Let me see what this guy has on him. After Jiang Li fell to the ground, 2 figures walked out from the shadows in the corner. The 2 of them were similar in age and looked similar, but they were a pair of notorious wandering cultivator brothers. Wait! The man called Big Brother stopped his reckless younger brother and took out a few black nails from his body. He shook his hands and shot them out. After they pierced through Jiang Li's limbs and joints, he finally relaxed. Big Brother is still the most vigilant. Hey kid, don't pretend to be dead. It's your bad luck to have encountered us, the twin devils of the Thorn River. Hand over everything you have. Then, recite all the cultivation methods and spell techniques you know. Perhaps we can spare your life. The younger brother of the twin devils of the Thorn River walked forward and grabbed the heavily injured body on the ground. After that, he lifted the body up and revealed his face that was covered under the hood. It was a terrifying face with a green face, sharp teeth and black fur. Ah, a zombie! The rogue cultivator cried out in alarm as the ferocious black zombie bounced up from the ground. 10 pitch-black fingernails directly pierced into the chest of the rogue cultivator's younger brother, who was a foot away from him. An irresistible force pulled him closer and bit his neck. With this bite, it would only take a few breaths of time to suck out all the blood energy in his body. At that time, even an immortal might not be able to save him. Ah, damn it, don't hurt my brother. The other rogue cultivator quickly took out 2 pieces of yellow paper and rushed forward to save his brother. However, the moment he took a step forward, he stopped abruptly. "Friend, where do you want to go?" A voice of interest came from behind him. A hard, strong hand clasped his shoulder from behind. A tremendous force came from his shoulder, causing the rogue cultivator to fall to his knees with a plop. Both of his knees smashed the limestone on the ground into pieces. However, Jiang Li had long removed the pill poisoning suppression and recovered his strength. He quietly followed behind the black zombie and suddenly took action now. Chapter 40, Interrogation. "This is impossible. You're only at the mid-stage chi refinement realm. How can you have such great strength?" The older brother of twin devils of the Thorn River had his shoulder shattered by a single slap from Jiang Li, and he knelt on the ground while his knees were covered in blood. His body had suffered heavy injuries, and he was unable to stand up for a long time. Name: Wuxiang. Gender: male. Class: cultivator. Level: late stage chi refinement. Danger level: medium. Name: Wuhi. Gender: male. Class: cultivator. Level: mid-stage chi refinement. Danger level: low. After removing the pill poisoning suppression, his strength would increase, and the danger rating would decrease accordingly. Jiang Li had just launched a sneak attack from behind and released his spiritual qi. Due to his limited ability to conceal himself, he was discovered by his elder brother Wu Jiang immediately. Naturally, he recognized his qi refinement cultivation immediately. Wu Jiang actually had the ability to dodge, but the twin devils of the Thorn River were a pair of brothers who had a very good relationship. Wu Jiang saw that his younger brother, Wu He, was on the verge of death, and he noticed that Jiang Li's cultivation was limited, so he intended to take Jiang Li's attack head-on and seize the chance to rescue his younger brother. The plan was wonderful, their brotherhood was touching. However, following that, the abnormal force on Jiang Li's palm stunned him. He was instantly heavily injured and lost the ability to resist. One is at the mid-stage of chi refinement, while the other is at the late stage of chi refinement. You dare call yourselves the twin devils of the Thorn River?" Jiang Li sneered. With a shake of his hand, a chain flew out from beneath his black robe. The chain slithered around nimbly like long snakes, binding Wu Jiang in an instant. Jiang Li grabbed the chained Wu Jiang and walked to the black zombie's side. He stretched out his palm and pulled out the 6 nails that had shot into the black zombie. Zombies had almost no sense of pain, and their reaction to physical damage was much slower than humans. A few lousy quality nails could only deal limited damage to them. On the other side, the younger brother of the twin devils of the Thorn River had already been sucked to near death by the black zombie's fangs. Jiang Li forcefully controlled the black zombie to stop sucking blood and spared Wu He's life, trapping him under the zombie's armpit. The man and zombie did not stop at all, continuing to run in one direction, quickly disappearing into the cover of the darkness. Consume the experimental mad strength pill. Added status: muscle stiffening. Status: muscle stiffening has been removed. Consume the experimental mad strength pill. Added status: mad strength. After the effect ends, enter a state of weakness. Mad strength: temporary strength +5, temporary constitution +2, base strength +100%. Duration: 10 minutes -+. Overdose of the mad strength pill. Added status: blood bursting force. After the effect ends, heart failure will occur. Blood bursting force: temporary strength +10, temporary constitution +4, base strength +250%. Duration: 10 minutes -+. This was the origin of Jiang Li's inexplicable burst of strength. The mad strength pill, which was still stuck at the experimental stage, was refined using Jiang Li's useless pill formula. It could be said that this time, the twin devils of the Thorn River had lost without any injustice. Firstly, the black zombie attracted their attention and endured the sneak attack, turning his passive situation into an active one. On the other hand, Jiang Li's strength could not be considered to be weak. This was the 10 minutes of enormous explosion strength he gained after paying the terrifying price of heart failure after the status ends. Fighting a minor realm above him was not considered a challenge to begin with. Furthermore, this was a sneak attack, so they were taken down in one go. Of course, these 10 minutes would never pass, and the price of heart failure would never come. Jiang Li had originally come here to train his body before. Coupled with the immense brute force augmented by the mad strength pill, how could an ordinary qi refinement cultivator stand a chance against him once he got close? The twin devils of the Thorn River were the best example. Jiang Li did not leave the city directly. He brought the black zombie and made many turns in the alley. After making sure that no one was following him, he jumped a few times and silently entered the death row prison of the Southern Seal Kingdom. A handful of medicinal powder that could not even be considered a medicinal pill was scattered. It could only be used against mortals, and soon, the dungeon, which had wailing sounds incessantly, slowly quieted down. Bang, bang. The twin devils of the Thorn River were roughly thrown to the ground. In the dungeon, the excrement mixed with blood dried on the soil. The stench was shocking. Wu Jiang and Wu He were thrown to the ground with their faces covered in dirt. It took a lot of effort for them to barely roll over and let their mouths escape the fate of continuing intimate contact with the excrement. Hey, you two, stop pretending to be dead. It's your bad luck to have met me. Hand over everything you have and recite all the cultivation methods and spell techniques you know. Perhaps I can spare your lives. Jiang Li returned the words that they had said to him in exactly the same manner, causing the faces of the two rogue cultivators to turn pale. He urgently needed to know what had happened in the vicinity of the Southern Seal Kingdom and what the situation was like. Was the Scripture Storage Valley's elders and disciples here? This was related to their future operation and their safety. Now that two rogue cultivators had delivered themselves to his door, it gave him a way to obtain information quickly. However, there were always some people who were unwilling to cooperate obediently. HMPH, those who commit dangerous acts will eventually get caught. Make your move. If we, the twin devils of the Thorn River, frown, then we're not real men. That's right, make your move. Brat, you have only cultivated for a few years in the sect. You want us to be afraid of you? Impossible. Contrary to Jiang Li's expectations, the Wu brothers were extremely unyielding in their words. No matter how he tried to coerce them, they would not relent. Being captured by him, knowing that death was at hand, not only did they not have the slightest awareness or attitude of a captive, they were even shouting all kinds of vulgarities. They probably wanted to infuriate Jiang Li and kill them so that they would not suffer before they died. Jiang Li frowned and took out the black nails that they had used before. He shook his hand and directly shattered their kneecaps. This was also a technique taught by the elder in the cultivation hall. It was true that the effect of shattering the patella was not as effective as the loot bones, and it was also inferior to just piercing through the qi. However, it created a lot of pain. This method could force a cultivator to endure even more pain while awake. The injuries on their bodies caused them immense pain. Elder brother Wu Jiang's body trembled in pain, but he gritted his teeth and did not make a sound. His younger brother, Wu He, was rolling on the ground in pain, but he did not beg for mercy. Instead, he kept swearing non-stop and started cursing Jiang Li's 18 generations of ancestors. You guys are really tough. Jiang Li stabbed the remaining long nails into their bodies. The two of them rolled their eyes in pain, but they still looked like they would not speak no matter what. Jiang Li looked at their performance and realized that his interrogation method was indeed too low-level. Outlaws like them were bloodthirsty people who were ready to die at any moment. After determining that they were going to die, a person's stubbornness would often be greater than they imagined. Since they were going to die anyway, they definitely could not let their enemies gain any more benefits. Jiang Li understood this feeling. Perhaps it would be more effective to give them some hope when dealing with such people. Jiang Li quickly thought of an idea. He smiled, suddenly looking impressed. You know, I really admire you two brothers. I like people like you who have backbone. You are very lucky. I won't kill you today. You don't have to suspect that I lied to you. We can sign a contract. Jiang Li took out a contract from his body. This thing cost 5 spirit stones each, and he only had this one on him. The Wu brothers originally disdained Jiang Li's words and firmly believed that he was definitely lying to them. However, when the contract paper unfolded in front of them, the eyes of the twin devils of the Thorn River finally lit up. As long as they signed this, they could live. That's not all. Because of me, you guys are severely injured. If this goes out, the other rogue cultivators will not let you guys off, right? I just have a problem. I'm too kind-hearted. I can't bear to see you guys like this. Jiang Li once again put on a compassionate show, making a 180-degree turn with his initial fierce attitude. If you're injured, you have to take medicine. I'll even provide you with medicinal pills to recover from your injuries. Don't you think this treatment is appropriate? As he spoke, Jiang Li had already scribbled out a contract. In general, it was an agreement that Jiang Li would not kill them and would let them off after 4 hours. Moreover, he would not deliberately pursue them for 10 days. The contract did not even require the twin devils of the Thorn River to answer any questions. It was as if Jiang Li was acting foolishly and suddenly wanted to let them go. The clearly written contract was placed in front of the rogue cultivator brothers. The two of them looked at each other, not knowing what Jiang Li was planning. However, the contract did not seem to be a problem. As long as they signed it, they would be safe. Happiness came so suddenly that the two of them hesitated. But in the end, they still could not resist the temptation of living. They dabbed some blood on their wounds and pressed the bloody fingerprint onto them. Yes, very good. Congratulations, both of you, your lives are saved. Now let me heal your injuries. Jiang Li kindly took out a cloth bag from his body that gave off a slight burnt smell. There's no need. There's no need. Friend, we have our own medicinal pills, so there's no need to trouble you. The twin devils of the Thorn River waved their hands repeatedly. They subconsciously felt that something was amiss. The smile on Jiang Li's face grew even wider. Look, even the salutation had changed. Indeed, people could only achieve a win-win situation by getting along harmoniously with each other. Hey, you two, have you forgotten? Didn't you give me all your possessions just now? Jiang Li pointed at 2 small piles of things at the side. We didn't. Wu he. That's right, friend, you are right. We did offer the items willingly. Wu Jiang and Wu he gnashed their teeth in anger. That was the savings they had accumulated over many years. They had lost everything like this. Rogue cultivators were like this. Other than a small number of heavy items, most of their wealth would be on them. Since you've taken our things, we're of no use to you. Now can you let us brothers leave? One of Wu Jiang's shoulders was shattered, and he was unable to move his hand. He could only hold his breath and bow to Jiang Li with one hand. After all, this was different from before. They already had hope of surviving, so they naturally had to be more polite to Jiang Li. I haven't treated you yet. Besides, we still have 4 hours, right? Don't be anxious, you two. Jiang Li opened the contract again and showed them the agreement inside. We don't need your treatment. Please keep your promise and let us live. One of Wu Jiang's hands was broken, and 2 of his legs were broken. At this time, he could not leave this place by himself at all. After signing the contract, they who had just been unafraid of death started to become afraid. Hey, that's too serious. The contract is here. How can I dare to go against it? Come on, my friends. It's time to take your medicine. Jiang Li kicked them to the ground and took out 2 charred and smelly pills from the cloth bag. He opened their mouths and stuffed one into each of them. He was afraid that they would not swallow it, so he used his spiritual qi to push the pills into their stomachs before he was satisfied. Urg. Just like Jiang Li, they violently retched and twitched. Bastard, what did you feed us? You promised to let us go. You went back on your word. The contract will punish you. After Wu Jiang and Wu He recovered from their shock, they immediately started cursing. Then Jiang Li stuffed 2 more medicinal pills into their mouths. Their auras visibly weakened rapidly. Wu Jiang's aura had fallen to the mid-stage qi refinement realm. His younger brother, Wu He, had fallen to the initial stage qi refinement realm. Both of their faces turned dark and yellowish, looking weak and sickly. I promised not to kill you, and I also promised to let you go. However, that is 4 hours from now. You want to know what these are? They're really nice. They're called waste pills. Have you heard of them? Jiang Li gently and elegantly took out 2 more waste pills from the cloth bag. He placed them at his nose and took a deep sniff. This smell was extremely pungent. Waste pills. You demon, you actually fed us waste pills. The twin devils of the Thorn River lay on the ground, their faces filled with despair as they accused Jiang Li of his despicable actions. Aren't waste pills still considered pills? How dare you scold me? Where do you think you are? After consuming another waste pill each, their auras became even weaker. Their bodies began to emit a terrible burnt smell as their spiritual qi circulation became even slower. I will tell you very responsibly that you will need to spend at least 20 years to expel the pill poison from the 3 waste pills. Find a mortal city and hide your identity for 20 years. After you recover, you can still be the twin devils of the Thorn River. But if you eat another waste pill, it will take 50 years. If you eat even more than that, I'm afraid you won't be able to return to the cultivation world for the rest of your lives. To be tortured by pill poisoning and spend the rest of your life at the bottom of the mortal world, or live and wait 20 years to cultivate again. I'm not going to kill either of you. Now, whether or not you want to answer my question is entirely up to you.